Hello everyone, how are you doing today? Happy New Year. I hope you had a wonderful Christmas and I hope this year of 2023 will be a blessing and healing to each and every one of us and your families as well. All right, glad to have you here. If it is your first time here, I am so pleased to have you on this channel viewing these videos and learning. All right, this is our story time session and we are at episode 17. All right, we start from 1 and now we're at episode 17, but I will not go any further and just start reading for you this story of George and Venus. Okay, so let's get started. All right, so we start with, remember they were on, George went to the bus terminal to pick up his men. All right, so this is where we are now. The bus terminal was loaded with many passengers come Wednesday evening, especially since it was close to the Christmas season. George Greenback made sure he was there on time and stood close to the podium where he knew the bus from his village would be stopping at Corridor 6. It was few minutes after 6 o'clock when the bus finally arrived there at the Nesbury Hill station, and it soon began letting off its passengers. Anxiously and eagerly, George Greenback waited to see the familiar faces from his village come climbing from off the stairs of the bus. The first the first face George recognized was that of Bernard, whom he immediately grabbed by the neck and began to give him a passionate hug and kiss. Then Mark and Ziggy came off the bus with Marcus, Tad, and Lenny following behind. Soon all 7 men were knotted together in a group hug, very elated about a new opportunity that was about to change their lives forever. Excitingly, George asked, "How was the ride, my friend? Was it good?" All six of his friends smiled and nodded their heads, agreeing that the ride was a very pleasant one. However, the bus terminal was around 3.5 miles away from George's house on the top of Nesbury Hill, and George daringly proposed, knowing that his friends wouldn't mind taking on such an offer or a challenge. After all, they have come to the place where they would be eventually having their dreams fulfilled, and furthermore, they all had covered on foot way much more distance from what their friend and soon to be boss was suggesting for them to do now. And like missionaries going on the battlefield for the Lord, all 6 men heaped up their luggage and began walking towards George's house on the top of Nesbury Hill. But before making it up the steep paved hill, a memorable moment was being formed as they chatted and reminisced about years gone by in their village of Busara and about the ones they had left behind. Laughingly and chatting continuously, all 7 men kept on walking home, which made the 3.5 mile journey seems way much shorter than it actually was. And 2 hours later, the strong and robust country dwellers were unloading their bags from their shoulders, backs, and hands, while their faces were filled with excitement, seeing the place they would be calling home for the next couple of months, if not years. "All this is yours?" Bernard exclaimed, asking, with much enthusiasm in his voice. George smiled while placing both hands on his hips. "Yes, it's mine, but not only mine alone. It's my girlfriend's Venus place as well," George responded honestly, still smiling. His achievement had his brotherhood motivated and quite inspired to accomplish great things for themselves as well. But would any of them be as lucky as George? Minutes after 9 o'clock was now here, and George decided to start dishing out the corned beef and rice he had cooked earlier on that day for his expected guests from his village. And happily they all sat and began devouring their meal while George filled them in on the task ahead of them, the various jobs they would be performing while employed by his girlfriend's father, Richard Thomas. As if taking notes from a surgeon's, they listened keenly to every word being spilled from George's mouth. Bernard, Ziggy, and Mark were on the tall side, graced with height and muscular like their fathers. Therefore, George recommended that they would be taking on the position as security officers for the company. Marcus, Tad, and Lenny would be learning the art of trading, answering the phones, and following up with clients and their orders, and also sitting in on business meeting as well, as they could stay abreast so they could stay abreast with the operation of the company. However, the three appointed for office duties would still be trained as security officers just in case one should fall short of whatever for whatever reasons. Sam and Sam, one of George's co-workers' brother from the mechanic shop, would be joining the flock of men as well for duty. Thankfully for George, none of his buddies were seeing their positions superior than the other. All were eager about all they were eager about was to get started with working and receiving their paycheck so they could send back something, some form of gift to their village and make their families and relatives proud of them. The ball was now in place and started rolling. And just after eating and washing up for the night, all seven men went to bed and anxiously waited for Thursday morning to come so they could visit and tour the place they would be working in the very near future. But before they could open their eyes and put something warm in their stomach, Richard Thomas was pounding on the front door of the Nesbury Hills house early Thursday morning. George answered the phone. George answered the doorbell and happily greeted by Richard Thomas, the oil-rich businessman. Filled with enthusiasm, Richard stepped through the front door and exclaimed, asking, "Where are my boys?" as he made giant steps up the stairs. "They are still in bed," George answered. "Get them up so I could get familiar with their faces," demanded Richard Thomas. Instantly, George obeyed and went knocking on the bedroom doors where the friends lay crowded and still feeling tired from their long journey. But the picture of them obtaining jobs, and soon about to meet their employer was enough to get them motivated and jumping out of the bed. Like they were statesmen about to receive an award, Mr. Richard Thomas shook each of their hand individually and welcomed them to Nesbury Hill, but most of all to his brand new oil company. Braggingly, he then stated, "Above me there is no other. However, below me is my soon-to-be son-in-law, George, whom you will all, whom you all already know very well," continued Richard Thomas with much elation in his voice. "He will be your boss and will be taking orders from me. So whatever he tells you to do, please do it and allow this oil machine to run smoothly." The experienced businessman proceeded very enthused, and with those words spoken from Mr. Thomas's mouth, Bernard dropped to his knees and repeatedly he thanked the businessman for considering them for this position at his company, a moment which had Richard Thomas very lauded at the young man's reaction to this wonderful opportunity. However, it was around 7 o'clock in the morning, and glares of sunbeams could be seen dancing through the windows of George's house, and rather unexpectedly his phone began ringing. The phone to his ears now, George gave out a hearty "Hello!" "Hi, darling," Venus responded, smiling. "I'll be coming home for Christmas, my darling. I'll be home for Christmas." This is the end of episode 17. I hope you like the story. Look for the literary devices in the story. All right, underline them, write them out. All right, so you can have them to place them in your own story. There are similes, there are metaphors. All right, in the story there are even puns. All right, so take a look at the story, listen to it repeatedly, and look for the literary devices so you can have them, so you can get familiar with them and write them in your own story. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you like this story, and I hope you would like to like the story, subscribe, not like the story only, but like the channel, subscribe, hit the notification, share. All right, and I hope you join me in my next class. Until then, and also check the description box below. I almost forgot. All right, there are links to my merch and also to my book, Orphan of a New Dawns. It's on Amazon. It is doing well, and I would love for you guys to get a good read from this story. It's a wonderful story, not a story that nobody's killing anybody or anything like that, but it's a nice subtle read that anyone will enjoy, teenagers and adults. All right, so please check the link for Amazon in my description box below. All right, until my next class, I hope you'll join me then. Until then, bye bye.